joke about last time I was an eye surgeon, I had a young 86-year-old look up at me. He said, Dr. Lamming, do you mind making just a tiny mistake? I need the money. So I'm just asking for a tiny speech to just make a few points. And I want to first of all talk about you guys, and then I want to talk about how you make sure this never happens again, which doesn't help you guys. It's about helping the next community group that's in this very position. Can I start by saying that I gave a pretty strong speech here last time, and since that time I've been really impressed both with what you've achieved and what Michael Choi has organised. And I have no question of that. It's been a great result. But there is always a difference between the inputs to a problem and the outcome. And it's often that these elected members appear to do a whole lot for you, but you end up living with the outcome, which isn't what you want. And it's not enough for us to do everything we can. You must not lose sight that the only thing that matters is the right outcome on this block. You agree? It's the outcome. So we're all working hard and the legs are spinning, but don't be blinded by a tiny little concession and lots of meetings and evidence that there's been furious activity. It's all about what ends up happening on that block. Now, you've come within inches of a disaster, okay? And I pointed out that it's federal money. It's your tax that's being spent, between $8 and $9 million out of your pocket into what's happening. You do have a say, absolutely. Now, you need to know there is still a significant opposition from within the engine room of the department that builds these things. And as Michael said, he'll keep working hard, as I will, but in the end, it's only half a kilometre away that you've got 27 one-bedrooms, 8 two-bedrooms, and 12 car parks. Now, what's the difference between that and that? Why wasn't there this kind of a rally helping Helen Murray for that? So your community's been just as disadvantaged by not being able to get a car park when you need to at the train station on a wet day by that development as you are potentially here. But you didn't see me and Michael putting our hands up enough then. And Helen was very much on her own. So I hope I'm not misquoting you, Helen, but you know, you guys drive it. If you're not sitting here in these seats and rallying, then you won't get what the community deserves. Never forget that. So the message from today, please don't stop. Don't accept a tiny concession as the only victory you'll get, because that's what they're hoping in there in Brisbane. They're hoping that's enough to take the steam out of your opposition, is that little concession. I need to answer one question. You're doing exactly what you need to do, madam. Keep the numbers up, and supporting Margaret is the best way. And you have got Michael Choi working hard on it, so keep the pressure on. But I do want to say one thing. It's been a little bit of a throwaway line saying that it was code accessible and that the size of the block means this many units and you don't really ever know. Well, can I tell you about where that 8 units did come from? And I know we've heard Melbourne knew nothing about that number. Let me tell you this. A number of developers queued up at council having what are called a pre-assessment meeting. And they all wanted to build quality units on that block, and it was blocked. So don't always wish for something to be blocked, or you could get something even worse. What a lesson in politics that is. So while Melbourne may deny knowledge of 8 units, I tell you what, there were plenty of private sector people who wanted to build on there and put adequate car parks in. All right? Now, I don't know what would have happened to the koala trees. The same meetings would have occurred here. But the important thing to remember is that everyone tried to build something else on there and was stopped, and that created the opening for state government to do what they've done to you. All right? Now, let's just finish on the general point. Helen made a fantastic point that you are the scapegoats, you are the victims of that general decision not to make Australia's sprawl and Brisbane's footprint any larger. And I just do not understand why we are destroying prime red soil koala vegetation here in Birkdale and we're protecting grey scrub south of Redland Bay. I mean, it's the equivalent of Maroubra. One day it will be Brisbane, but it will become Brisbane after you've destroyed Birkdale. Please reconsider. When you hear people say no more urban sprawl, I say if you put the jobs out there, there's no problem. You should live where you work and there'll never be a problem. We are going to have an increasing population. Not necessarily 36 million, but I'll tell you what, one day that will be built below Redland Bay. It's disgusting grey soil. I've walked through it. Not even a koala would go there. But we're protecting that under some obligation to stop urban sprawl. You're the victims. You will be the victims. Now I'll move on to Todd's. And look, I believe in density next to major rail and road infrastructure. The problem is that the Cleveland line goes straight to the bay and then paradoxically runs right down through Wynnum, Manly, Lota and right along delicate ecology. That's not the place for a TOD. A TOD belongs on a route that goes straight to your city, but not building it up in the Redlands, because this line is simply too long to be an effective transport route so long as we'll have a busway that does it in 28 minutes. So you're being sold high density here when everyone's going to go down and catch a bus on a busway. They'll be into Brisbane 22 minutes from Capalaba. A train will never compete with that. So don't let them destroy your community on the grounds that you have to be a TOD. This is a silly place to be a TOD for that reason. It's not a direct rail line and it runs along our coastline. It's crazy to turn that into TOD. All right? So what I'm saying is in finality, private sector is going to come along and want to build apartments. And I agree, Helen, myself, Michael, we won't stop them all. There'll be times when there's great applications that shouldn't be stopped. But they are the ones that provide the car parks. They're not going to fill these streets with cars. They're not going to completely paralyse your train stations. There will be good developments which we will all have to support. And one day I'll be in government and your anger may well be directed at me. I'll never forget that. But let me say there are things I'll have to support, but what's happening on Mary Street I will never support, because that does not deserve to be basically forced upon you. That's what's happened. You're only halfway there, and I wish you all the best for the future. Keep collecting the evidence and the science, the arborist reports, and you will prevail. Well done, everyone.